My name is Amanda Vesthardt. I am from Denmark originally, but I am mainly based in Norway, Oslo, and I work with textile art, all things from related to body, space, and installations and performance and a lot of different things. And I collaborate a lot of times with other artists with these bigger performance pieces. And during the residency here, I was very focused on wanting to do big textile installations. And it was very interesting because when I moved here, I brought with me like a big poster from my apartment that's from a student trip I went to like 10 years ago. And it made me really consider and think about where I was then and where I am now. And that relating to the theme of like childhood dreams made me think so much of like, what did I want as a child? Like, what was my childhood dreams? It was to become fashion designer, costume designer, jewelry designer. And it made me reflect on the fact that I actually have accomplished those things already. Like, I actually already have, like, during Corona, made a small jewelry brand for fun. I have worked in fashion companies. I realized it wasn't for me. I did more the textile, and it made me think so much about how far I've gotten and how often I have to, like, really remind myself of the successes. It's very interesting that like you always have these doubts, even when you're like actually successful. You have to constantly look back and be like, oh, I did succeed. I did manage to actually, I am developing. I am doing things I like, I want. And I was looking back over the last like 2, 3, 4 years to find like inspiration for my project here, because what happens is that a lot of times when I have this very depressive period throughout a project or generally in life, I have these like creative methods. I think a lot of creative people, even people who don't work necessarily with art, have, that I would like knit or draw or do ceramics. And it was very like mindful for me, and it made me kind of in touch with myself. And I was looking at those things and realizing I actually have this visual character that kind of comes out every time I have these thoughts. And it is this like black blobby figure in me, that is like the evil little demon in me, that's, you know, like all the hands are like the thoughts that are like pushing you down into this, you're not good enough, you're not, other people are doing better, like why should you do art? Like there's this whole existential crisis about why do we need art and like all of this stuff. And that was the point where I was doing really not good. And I had this very visual character with the hands, with an eye, this little figure with the long arms. And I realized I actually really wanted to do a kind of representation and homage to this negative creature in me. So when I was developing the work, I was wanting to do like a piece that represented that. And especially relating to when kids are young, you know, you're like, oh, I'm gonna become this and this. And parents are like, oh, but that's difficult. You have to go to school, you have to do this. And as a child, you're just like, oh, my possibilities are endless. And when you become an adult, I constantly think like, oh, I cannot do this. I cannot be a successful artist. But then I have to constantly remind myself that, oh, I already am a successful artist. So this whole installation of the hands, which I'm calling the hands of the imposter, is a very visual representation of all of these hands and all of these spent thoughts that I think everyone has in different ways. But for me, they were very related towards my creative work. And I think it's interesting to have this as an exhibition that you can touch and you can go into. And especially when it comes to kids, when you're at the opening or at the exhibition, kids will immediately interact and play with it, whereas adults are more like, oh, you're not supposed to touch art, you're not supposed to do this, and like telling them off, and you have to like let them actually play with it. So I think that is also like a very interesting visual representation of the mentality that when you become older, you constantly put yourself in spaces where you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't do this, I can't do that. So it's a very interesting thing to see the finished work.